This activity is called How Much Bigger? It's for a grade 5 class and it's based on measurement. So you would need grid paper, access to a smartboard or a whiteboard to be able to draw such grids. You would eventually need access to a photocopier or a computer and printer, and then some cartoon and character images on A4 or smaller sizes. So this activity is modified from a resource that I saw on Skoodle. So what I'd do is I would introduce the activity and start with this 2x2 grid just here in the middle of the page, and asking the students what would happen to the grid if we were to double the perimeter. We would get this, so a 4x4 grid. I would pose the question to them then I'd pose the statement to look at how when something doubles, like a grid like this doubles, exactly how much bigger it gets. So then I'd pose the problem of a 5x5 grid times 2, doubling it. What does it get? At this point, I would explain that by doubling it, it is 100% bigger. And I would help this possibly confusing concept by getting a piece of paper and covering half of the original image, so half of this 5x5, and saying, how much do you see? And they'd say, and I'd try and elicit in percentages, so they'd say, we see half, 50%, and so thereby explaining that doubling it is increasing its size by 100%. We're not focusing on percentages in this class, but it's a way to bring it in and introduce it. So at this point, I'd explain and ask them how we could use grids to enlarge images. If we didn't have access to technology, how could grids be used? Then what I would do next is give them some grid paper and ask them to draw an image. They could draw anything they like. So the squares on the grids would be relatively small, say 1 or 2 centimetres in size. And then I would have pre-prepared a larger grid paper and model this, because it might be a bit confusing, but ask them to transfer their original design onto the larger grid. So by taking it square by square, they can see that they're enlarging the image without the use of technology. So the extension could be using a photocopier. That's where the percentages would come into it. They'd have to really understand, and it could be through trial and error that they understand completely how doubling something is 100% more, or if they put in 150% more, they see that it goes to exactly that, 150% larger. They probably do need time to discover this, like I said, through trial and error. If you have the use of a computer, and a printer in your room, you could show the students how to print by inserting that higher percentage number to print larger than the original image. So language surrounding this activity could be bigger, larger, smaller, image, grid, percent, enlarging. Misconceptions could be that the students don't really understand how twice as big relates to 100% bigger. It is quite a tricky concept, but like I've mentioned already, through trial and error, it can be hopefully discovered. They probably might have trouble drawing their enlarging images on their own grids. For this, I would first provide them with the grids and then explain to them that, it's once they've got their head around it, it is quite an easy concept. They can create their own grid, so they can decide how much bigger their own images needs to be. That's it.